The Qatarian commander Prylar stood speechless as the captured human's agonizing screams echoed through the research lab, never before witnessing a being endure this level of pain without expiring. The alien scientists had underestimated the human named Eric Cooper from the moment they abducted him for their experiments. Subjecting Eric to increasingly excruciating tests to study his physiology and pain response, the Qatarians expected him to perish quickly, like the dozens of species they had examined before. But this human was different. As they pushed Eric to the brink using advanced torture technology that had swiftly killed every other test subject, he gritted his teeth and endured with a resilience that unnerved the Qatarian researchers. Prylar intensified the experiments to levels beyond anything they thought a living entity could withstand. Eric's pain tolerance seemed to have no limits. The human's anguished cries grew louder as the Qatarians increased the neural stimulators to maximum power. Eric's body convulsed violently against the restraints. Unfathomable agony ripped through every nerve ending. But still, he did not break. "How can he endure this much torment?" Prylar demanded of his team. "By all our knowledge, this degree of suffering should destroy any known organism." They exchanged perplexed looks, unable to explain it. No being had ever survived this long under their most extreme testing. Prylar glared at Eric, strapped to the bloodied torture platform, barely conscious. "How are you withstanding this? Your pain threshold is not biologically possible. Answer me!" Through cracked, bloodied lips, Eric managed to croak a response. "Strengths of the human will." Each word took immense effort. "We don't surrender, no matter what." Those words chilled Prylar to the core. If all humans possessed this staggering capacity to endure unimaginable agony, then the Qatarian Imperium's plans of conquest over the human-controlled sectors of the galaxy were in jeopardy. His kind had never faced a species like this before. Little did Prylar know that a human Black Ops team was already closing in on the secret Qatarian research compound to rescue their comrade. The commandos had tracked Eric's abduction to this hidden base. They were determined to save him at all costs before the Qatarians could learn too much about human resilience. But it wasn't just Eric's life at stake anymore. It was humanity's tactical advantage. If the sadistic alien researchers gained key insights into human biology and pain tolerance, it could jeopardize Earth's defenses against the Qatarian threat. Back in the lab, Eric's torment reached new, horrifying peaks as Prylar grew increasingly desperate to break him. The captive's sanity began to splinter. He couldn't last much longer. With time running out, the Special Forces unit readied an explosive breach of the compound, prepared to face whatever horrors the Qatarians had in store. The coming violent confrontation would test the depths of human fortitude like never before. Explosions rocked the Qatarian compound as Captain Jack Hawkins led his team of elite human commandos in a daring breach. Outnumbered and outgunned, the soldiers charged forward with unmatched ferocity, their weapons blazing as they engaged the alien guards in close-quarters combat. Hawkins ducked behind cover, popping up to put a burst of fire into Qatarian's chest. "Push forward. We're not leaving without Eric." Strapped to the experimentation table, Eric heard the sounds of battle growing closer. Gunfire rattled and explosions boomed, each one sending a jolt of desperate hope through his ravaged body. Prylar snarled in frustration, realizing time was running out. "Increase the neural stimulators to maximum." The Qatarian scientist punched commands into a console. "I will break this human before help arrives." Agony beyond imagining ripped through Eric as the machine amped up, attacking every nerve in his flayed body. His spine arched against the restraints, tendons straining as an otherworldly howl tore from his throat. The scream resonated through the compound, a sound of pure anguish. Hearing that cry, Hawkins felt his blood boil with rage. He knew that scream would haunt him forever. "Double time it, men! He can't take much more!" The commandos surged ahead with renewed urgency, blasting Qatarian soldiers and rushing past mangled corpses as they honed in on Eric's location. In the experimentation chamber, Prylar watched the human writhe and thrash. Amazed, he still drew breath. He filled a syringe with bubbling green neurotoxin. "Let's see if you can survive this." He injected the substance into Eric's neck, and instantly the captive's body went rigid, back lifting clear off the table as every muscle seized. Hawkins and his men smashed through the chamber door, guns at the ready. The captain put a bullet between the eyes of a Katarian guard reaching for his sidearm. On the ground, now! As his team subdued the scientists and secured the space, Hawkins grabbed Pryler by the collar, shoving the barrel of his rifle under the alien's chin. How do we turn this shit off? Tell me! The console. The red button. Pryler gasped out as blood leaked from his wounded side. Hawkins nodded to one of his men, who raced over and slapped the emergency shutdown. Eric sagged in his bonds, a ragged sob escaping him as the machine powered down. The team crowded around, working quickly to cut away the restraints and free his wrecked body. Holy hell! One of the soldiers breathed as they beheld the gore-streaked tables and trays of blood-stained instruments. You're safe now, Hawkins reassured his shaking, disoriented friend. We've got you. Eric managed a ghost of a smile through cracked lips before his eyes rolled back and he went limp. Get a stretcher. Let's move. While his men prepped Eric for evac, Hawkins dragged Pryler up, shoving him against the gore-spattered wall. Start talking. Why were you butchering my man? What's the point of all this? Pryler coughed wetly. Your species. We had to assess if you could be conquered. Put to work in our empire. He winced as Hawkins dug a thumb into his wound. But this one, he endured beyond our greatest estimates. The pain never broke him. Perhaps your kind would be too costly to subjugate. A cold pit formed in Hawkins' gut at the implications. The Katarians weren't just probing humans for scientific curiosity. This was calculated research into an adversary. If your people come for mine, you'll find we're made of far sterner stuff than you realized. Pryler just shook his head as the humans carried their wounded comrade out of that nightmarish lab. These Terrans were more resilient than the Katarians knew. Pryler watched his blood pool on the sterile tiles, a sense of dread settling over him. There would be a reckoning for this, he was certain of that. And when it came, he hoped his people were ready to reap what they had sown in cruelty and arrogance. For he had looked into that human's eyes as agony consumed his mind, and in them he had glimpsed the sheer ferocity and invincible willpower that waited to be unleashed. That battered captive was just one man, but he had shown the true metal of which humans were forged. The medical bay of the UES Intrepid bustled with activity as Eric Cooper was rushed in on a stretcher. Medics swarmed around him, hooking up IVs and monitoring equipment. Despite the chaos, Eric's eyes remained open, alert, and defiant. Jesus, how is he still conscious? One of the medics muttered. Captain Hawkins stood nearby, watching with a mix of concern and admiration. He's made of tougher stuff than any of us realized. Eric's voice came out as a rasp. Sir, what's our next move? Hawkins shook his head. You focus on healing up, soldier. We'll handle the rest. But Eric wasn't having it. He gripped Hawkins' arm with surprising strength. I need to be part of this, sir. Whatever comes next. The captain met Eric's gaze, seeing the fire that still burned there despite everything he'd endured. He nodded slowly. All right, Cooper. We'll see what we can do. Meanwhile, in a secure holding cell, Pryler sat hunched over, nursing his wounds. 2 human guards stood watch as an intelligence officer entered. Let's make this simple, the officer said. Tell us everything you know about the Katarian Empire's plans. Pryler's eyes narrowed. And why should I betray my people? The officer leaned in close. Because right now, you're all that stands between us and total war. Your cooperation could save countless lives, on both sides. Pryler hesitated, then began to speak. He told them of the Katarians' vast fleets, their advanced weaponry, their plans to subjugate dozens of worlds. But with each word, a note of uncertainty crept into his voice. We thought we were invincible, Pryler admitted, but after what I saw today, I'm not so sure anymore. In the ship's war room, human military leaders pored over the data stolen from the Katarian facility. Tactical displays showed potential invasion routes, weapon schematics, and fleet deployments. Admiral Chen pointed to a blinking icon on the map. This shipyard is their primary production facility. If we can take it out, we might buy ourselves enough time to prepare our defenses. Hawkins nodded grimly. It's a suicide mission, but it might be our only shot. To everyone's surprise, Eric Cooper limped into the room, his body bandaged, but his eyes clear. "Count me in," he said. The mission was a go. Under cover of darkness, a small team of human operatives infiltrated the massive Katarian shipyard. Eric moved slowly but surely, ignoring the pain that racked his body. They planted charges at key structural points, narrowly avoiding patrols of hulking Katarian guards. As alarms began to blare, the team made a mad dash for their extraction point. Explosions rocked the facility behind them, sending massive warships crashing down in flames. They barely made it to their stealth shuttle as the entire shipyard went up in a massive fireball. As they rocketed away from the devastation, a transmission came through. Pryler's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of anger and grudging respect. "You have no idea what you've done," he growled. "The full might of the Katarian Empire will descend upon your worlds. We will—" Eric cut him off. "Save it. You wanted to know what humans are made of? Well, now you know. We don't give up. We don't back down. And we sure as hell won't let you or anyone else take our freedom." The transmission cut out, leaving the human team in stunned silence. They'd struck a major blow, but the real war was just beginning. As Earth's defenders steeled themselves for the coming storm, one thing was certain. Humanity would face this threat as they always had. Together, unbroken and unbowed, and the destruction of the Tarian shipyard sent shockwaves through both human and alien forces. As the dust settled, Eric Cooper found himself in the war room of the UES Intrepid, his body still wrapped in bandages, but his mind razor-sharp. He leaned over holographic displays studying Katarian troop movements and defense grids. "We've got them on the back foot," Eric said, pointing to a pulsing red dot. "This command center controls their operations across 3 sectors. If we take it out, we'll cripple their ability to coordinate." Captain Hawkins nodded, his face grim. "It's heavily fortified. Getting in won't be easy." "That's why we use their own tech against them," Eric replied, pulling up schematics of Katarian stealth systems. "We reverse-engineered some of their cloaking devices. They won't see us coming." As they finalized plans, alarms blared throughout the ship. A comms officer's voice crackled over the intercom. "Incoming transmission from Tarian High Command." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the snarling visage of the Tarian Supreme Commander. "Humans," he spat. "Your cowardly attack will not go unanswered. Surrender now, or we will reduce your worlds to ash." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her voice steady. "We will never surrender to tyrants. Humanity stands ready to defend itself, no matter the consequences." The transmission cut off abruptly. Eric turned to Hawkins. "We need to move fast." Hours later, a stealth dropship sliced through the inky blackness of space, carrying Eric, Hawkins, and a team of elite operatives. They approached the massive Tarian command center, a sprawling structure filled with weapons emplacements. "Cloaking engaged," the pilot announced. "We're invisible to their sensors." They touched down on a landing pad, the ship's active camouflage masking their presence. Eric took point, leading the team through service corridors and maintenance shafts. For a moment, it seemed their infiltration would go off without a hitch. Then all hell broke loose. Alarms shrieked as they rounded a corner, coming face to face with a squad of hulking Katarian elites. Eric's reflexes kicked in, diving for cover as plasma bolts seared the air. "So much for the element of surprise," Hawkins shouted, returning fire. The narrow corridor became a killing ground. Tarian warriors charged forward, their armor absorbing incredible punishment, but the humans fought with a ferocity that shocked their alien foes. Eric spotted a weakness in the Katarian formation. "Cover me!" he yelled, sprinting forward. He slid beneath the Katarian's massive fist, planting an explosive charge on a structural support. The blast rocked the facility, collapsing part of the ceiling onto their attackers. Push through, Eric ordered, leading the charge deeper into the command center. As they fought their way forward, Eric's comm crackled to life. Pryler's voice came through, tinged with desperation. Cooper, this madness must end. We can broker peace, find a way to coexist. Eric's expression resolute as memories of his torture flashed through his mind. There's only one way this ends, Pryler. We're finishing what you started. They battled through winding corridors, each room presenting a new challenge. Eric and Hawkins fought in perfect sync, covering each other's blind spots and pressing the attack relentlessly. Finally, they reached the command center's inner sanctum. The doors hissed open, revealing a cavernous chamber dominated by holographic displays. And there, flanked by elite guards, stood the Catarian regional commander. The alien's eyes narrowed as he regarded the battered but unbroken humans before him. You should not have come here, he growled, drawing a crackling energy blade. Eric hefted his rifle, exchanging a glance with Hawkins. Let's end this, he said. The two forces clashed, human resilience pitted against Catarian might. The fate of the war hung in the balance as the battle raged on. Eric lunged forward, his fist connecting with the Catarian commander's jaw. The alien staggered back, its mandibles clicking in rage. Captain Hawkins fired a burst from his rifle, forcing the commander behind a console. We've got them on the ropes, Hawkins shouted. Eric nodded, sweat and blood mingling on his face. He advanced, each step sending shockwaves of pain through his battered body. The Catarian commander emerged, wielding a crackling energy weapon. You think you can defeat us? The alien snarled. We will crush your pathetic species. The air filled with sizzling bolts of energy. Eric dove, feeling the heat as plasma scorched the floor where he'd stood. He rolled to his feet, firing his sidearm. The Tarian's armor absorbed the shots, but it stumbled back. Suddenly the floor shook. A deafening boom echoed through the command center. Alarms blared as cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling. What the hell was that? Hawkins yelled over the cacophony. Before Eric could respond, his comm crackled to life. Pryler's voice came through, strained and urgent. Cooper, I've activated the self-destruct sequence. You have minutes to get out. Eric's eyes widened. Pryler, you crazy bastard. The Catarian commander roared in fury, unleashing a barrage from shoulder-mounted cannons. Energy bolts tore through the air, forcing Eric and Hawkins to scatter. We need to get to the central control room, Eric shouted. There's intel we can't leave behind. Hawkins nodded grimly. Lead the way. They sprinted out of the chamber, ducking under falling debris. The corridor ahead was a gauntlet of chaos. Panicked Catarian soldiers fired wildly, more concerned with escape than stopping the humans. Eric's legs burned as he ran, fresh blood seeping through his bandages. They rounded a corner, coming face to face with a squad of Catarian elites. Without hesitation, Eric charged. He slammed into the first alien, using its bulk as a shield against its comrades' fire. Hawkins provided covering fire, his rifle spitting death. Eric grappled with the Catarian, feeling its inhuman strength. He drove his knee into its midsection, following with a vicious headbutt that left the alien dazed. Move! Eric yelled, shoving past the stunned Catarians. They pressed on, battling through pockets of resistance. Eric's world narrowed to a tunnel of adrenaline and pain. Each breath was agony, each step a test of will. But he refused to falter. Finally, they reached the central control room. The Catarian commander lay slumped against a console, green blood oozing from multiple wounds. You've doomed us all, the alien wheezed. Eric ignored him, moving to the main terminal. His fingers flew across the alien interface, initiating data transfer protocols. How much time? Hawkins asked, keeping watch at the door. Eric glanced at a flashing countdown. 3 minutes, maybe less. They worked feverishly, downloading everything they could. The facility shuddered around them, the self-destruct sequence entering its final stages. That's it! Eric shouted. We've got to go! They sprinted out of the control room, retracing their steps through the crumbling command center. Explosions rocked the structure, sending them stumbling. Eric's lungs burned as he pushed himself to his limits. They emerged onto a landing pad, their shuttle waiting. The rest of the strike team was already aboard, faces etched with tension and exhaustion. "Go, go, go!" Hawkins bellowed as they leapt inside. The shuttle's engines roared to life. They lifted off just as the command center erupted in a massive fireball. The shockwave buffeted their craft, alarms blaring as the pilot fought for control. Eric collapsed into a seat, every nerve screaming in protest. He looked around at the battered, bloodied faces of his comrades. So many empty seats, so many who didn't make it. Hours later, back on the UES Intrepid, Eric stood before the assembled human military council. His body cried out for rest, but his voice was steady as he spoke. "The Qatarians won't stop," he said, his eyes hard. "We can't negotiate. We can't compromise. This is a fight for our very existence." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "The intel you recovered, it's worse than we imagined. Their empire spans dozens of systems. They've conquered countless species." Eric nodded grimly. "Then we'll be the ones who stop them, whatever it takes." The council chamber buzzed with tension. Maps of Qatarian territory filled holographic displays, the enormity of the task ahead sinking in. "We've bloodied their nose," Hawkins said. "But make no mistake, they'll hit back hard." Eric stood tall, ignoring the pain that radiated through his body. "Let them come. We'll show them what humanity is made of." As the council debated strategy, Eric's mind drifted to the horrors he'd endured in Qatarian captivity. The memory of that pain, that violation, hardened his dedication. He would make the Qatarians pay for their cruelty, not just for himself, but for every human they threatened.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.